Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Screen star Alan Ladd in an episode of Box 13. This episode goes back to June 5th, 1949. It's entitled Design for Danger.
Box 13, with the star of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
Box 13, care of Star Times. I need your help desperately. Johnny Tide was released from the state penitentiary this morning with murder in his heart. I don't know any of the details, but I'm sure that he'll be back here in Watertown by nightfall at the latest. If you mean what you say in your ad in the Star Times, be at the waterfront tonight.
If you mean what you say in your ad in the Star Times, be at the waterfront tonight and stop him. Remember, if you fail, Johnny Tide will kill or be killed by morning. And that would be wrong because there's lots of good in him. I know. I love him. Janice Reed. Yeah, that's the way it started. Just a girl worrying about a boy. But before it was all over, a lot of people were worrying about that boy. They had to, if they wanted to live. And now, back to Box 13 and Dan Holliday's newest adventure, Design for Danger.
Jeepers, Mr. Holliday. An ex-convict on the prowl in the toughest section of the city.
Uh-huh. That part of the city doesn't get the carriage trade, as the expression goes. Well, do we accept the challenge, Susie?
We? Oh, hey, I'm only your secretary, Mr. Holliday, and
I was using the editorial we, Susie.
Oh. Well, in that case, Mr. Holliday, I don't know what to say. Frankly, I'm trumped.
Susie, the word is stumped. The word is stumped. But maybe you've got something.
What?
I don't know. But tell you what, suppose I get down to Watertown and nose around a little.
Why?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe to see what's doing. It was called Watertown not because it was a separate city, but because it was a separate and different order from the rest of the town. But tonight there was none of the usual rowdy noises. None at all. Watertown was quiet. Too quiet. I could feel a peculiar tension in the air as I walked, as though Watertown was waiting for something to blow up. The people I saw hurried along, vanished into dark doorways and shuttered houses, afraid. A place like Watertown lives within itself, and news travels fast. Then I heard two men talking. I stopped in the shadows and listened.
I know what I'm talking about, Fatty. Tide was sprung this morning, and he headed straight for here.
Maybe he ain't in Watertown. Maybe he'd be afraid to come back.
Oh, Johnny Tide afraid of what? Of you, Fatty Ralston? You know he ain't afraid, and he ain't forgot.
Oh, shut up. You talk like I had to be afraid of Johnny.
Don't you have to be?
You guys make me sick. That punk's headed for someplace else. He ain't coming back to Watertown.
Well, just the same, if I was you, Fatty, I'd pull a blanket over me and hole up someplace.
Go on, beat it. Get out of here.
You ain't afraid much. Oh, not much.
I ain't afraid of Johnny Tide. I ain't.
Why not, Fatty? Or why should you be?
Who are you? Oh, what are you doing here?
I just wanted to ask you a question, Fatty.
You don't know me. I don't know you.
That's right.
Then run along and mind your own business, mister.
I've got business here. I just want to know, who is Johnny Tide?
You had your ears open, didn't you?
Yeah, wide open.
So you want to know who Johnny Tide is, huh?
That's right.
Oh, okay. You want it? Here it is.
I'll say this for Fatty. He was quick with his fists. By the time I got my breath back, I saw his 300 pounds disappearing around a corner. So if I wanted to know anything about Johnny Tide, Fatty was the boy to ask. I got up and followed. Saw him duck into a place that had a sign above it, Fatty's pool room. I slipped inside. Stepped into a dark corner and waited.
All right, everybody. Clear out. I'm closing up for the night.
What are you...
Eat it. You heard me. Look. Nobody owes me nothing. Now, that ought to make everything all right.
No, I don't want to...
Clear out. Go on.
Turning in early, aren't you, Fatty?
Well, you again. You don't learn lessons, do you?
I don't like the way you teach. Now you're going to tell me about Johnny Tide.
Was I? What makes you think that?
I had an idea you might.
Well, here's another idea with details, starting with this cue ball.
It's your window, Fatty.
Now, beat it. Stay away from me.
I asked you a question outside. I didn't like the way you answered it.
You a cop?
No.
Stay away from me. Stay away. My arm. Let go.
Sure. But who is Johnny Tide?
A punk kid, that's all. Anybody can tell you that.
I like the way you tell it. Come on.
Ease up, will you? That's my arm.
I know it is. It was my stomach outside.
Look, Tide's a punk kid. Just finished a 5-year stretch for sticking up my place.
This place?
Yeah, he robbed me of $4,000.
$4,000? Try it again, Fatty. I doubt if you ever had $4,000 in this place.
That's what it was.
And why are you afraid? If he robbed you and served time, why should you be afraid now?
He said he'd get me. Now let me go.
I'm sorry, Fatty, but your story doesn't make sense. In the first place, like I said, you never had $4,000. Not in this place.
You're smart, ain't you?
Just medium. But I can smell a bad story.
What's your stake in this anyway? Who are you?
An hour ago, I was just a curious bystander. I wanted to know who and what is Johnny Tide. But I took a punch in the midsection, and now you're telling me a lie. So that makes me more than curious. It gives me a personal interest.
Yeah. You let me go when I tell you?
It all depends. Go on.
All right. I'm only telling you because I got to get out of here before Johnny gets here.
Oh, so there is a reason for you to be afraid of him.
Maybe. But Johnny was framed. Rick Martin.
Rick Martin? The Rick Martin?
Yeah, big shot, boss of Watertown. He gave me $4,000, then he told Johnny I was a pushover for a stick-up.
Oh, and Rick Martin also told the police.
Yeah, he did. Johnny was framed, like I said.
Why should Rick Martin want to put that frame around Johnny Tide?
Because Rick liked the girl. So did Johnny.
So Rick took the easy way in love and war.
Now, let me go, will you? I told you everything. I got to get out of here before Johnny comes.
You were in on the frame?
Maybe not exactly, but Johnny won't believe I wasn't.
You know, Fatty, somehow I can't blame Johnny for that. How did Johnny find out he was framed?
Somebody talked. Somebody that don't like Rick Martin.
Uh-huh. Now, is the girl Janice Reed?
Yeah, that's her. Johnny thinks she was in on the frame, too. Now, please, will you let me go? I got to get out.
Yeah, sure, Fatty. You can go now.
I got to go far away because Johnny Tide will go for Rick Martin and then me and then Janice Reed.
So that was it. Johnny Tide was coming back to settle old scores. But where was he? How could I help? I was thinking about it when...
No! Stop! Stop, you truck! You hoodlum! Stop! He did it. He broke my showcase window.
Who did?
That no good Johnny Tide. I saw him. He broke my window and took a gun.
So, now Johnny Tide had a gun, and he was close. Very close. But it was also out of my hands and into the hot little hands of Lieutenant Kling.
Now, look, Holliday. I know that Tide was released from prison this morning. I know that he's in Watertown tonight. I know he intends to kill Rick Martin before morning. But I also know that all of this, including that pawn shop he just knocked over, is none of your business. Now, do I make myself clear?
Yes, you do. But before I go back to my typewriter, one question. What do you know about a girl named Janice Reed?
Very little. Only that she's a singer over at the Blue Chip, Watertown's most exclusive nightclub. Now, anything else, Danny boy?
No, nothing else, Lieutenant. Good night. Maybe I made a mistake when I asked Kling about Janice Reed. Because up until then, I was convinced that the lieutenant was right. I didn't belong in this mess. But now, well, I couldn't just step out and forget the whole thing. Not without talking to the girl anyway. I got a table at the Blue Chip without too much trouble, and 10 minutes later, Janice joined me. She was younger, prettier, much more upset than I had expected.
Mr. Holliday, what have you found out about Johnny?
Well, rumor has it that he intends to commit a few murders tonight. Oh, and incidentally, you're on his list.
I don't believe that. Look, Mr. Holliday, I know Johnny. I grew up with him right here in this neighborhood. Why, Johnny and I and Tyler Bennett were inseparable. Please, Mr. Holliday, you've got to believe me.
Maybe I do, Janice. But let's start off slowly. First of all, who's Tyler Bennett?
My boss. He owns this place. He and Johnny and I used to play together as kids. Why, we even had a secret clubhouse under the pier. All that kind of stuff. And how Johnny loved it. You know, that kid used to climb the old water tower over the clubhouse every day and pretend to sight pirate ships on the horizon. He'd get mad if we said they were just barges.
Which adds up to what, Janice?
That Johnny was never really a bad boy, Mr. Holliday. He just craved excitement, that's all.
But what about Rick Martin? How do you explain that?
Well, Rick meant action and fast money. And Johnny liked both. He was young and he made a mistake, but he's paid for it. He served his time. Don't you see, Mr. Holliday, he needs help. He needs it badly.
You certainly got a lot of faith in him, Janice. But what about you and Rick Martin? Go out with him?
Once in a while. I have to keep my job. Don't forget, Rick Martin runs Watertown.
That might be hard to explain to Johnny Tide.
No, it won't. Believe me, Mr. Holliday, if you can find him, you can talk sense into him. I know that.
Well, I'm not so sure.
But you'll try.
Okay, I'll try.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, pardon me, but you're on in a minute, Janice.
All right, Tyler. Oh, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Holliday.
How do you do?
Hello, how are you?
Excuse me, I'll only be a few minutes.
Janice was telling me how you two grew up with Johnny Tide, Mr. Bennett.
Oh.
Have any idea where he might be?
Well, if I did, I'd go directly to the police with the information. Johnny was a good kid once, but that was a long time ago. He's dangerous now. He's very dangerous.
Janice won't buy that.
I know. She was in love with him 5 years ago. She can't believe he's changed. But mark my word, Johnny Tide will kill before this night is over. I only hope he doesn't get to Janice.
When I left the Blue Chip, I knew that in spite of both Kling and Tyler Bennett, I was on Janice's side. Now, my only problem was to stop Johnny Tide, if I could find him. I walked around aimlessly for the better part of an hour before I got a break. I stopped to look up at the sky, and I found myself staring at the remains of a rotted water tower. For a moment, the jumble of old boards didn't mean a thing, but suddenly it struck home. Johnny Tide used to play pirate on that water tower, and there was a secret clubhouse below. It could be just the spot for a hideout. I felt my way through the blackness when...
You move one more step, fella, and I blow your head off. Who are you?
The name's Holliday, Dan Holliday. I'm not a policeman, and I don't work for Rick Martin.
Your opener's okay. Now keep talking.
All right. Here it is. You're, Johnny Tide, huh?
Maybe. Keep talking.
Well, Johnny Tide, you're the world's biggest sucker.
Yeah?
You waste 5 precious years in prison, and on your first day out with a clean slate, you get into a jam that'll either mean the chair or a pine box.
And what's that to you?
Personally, nothing. But I'm around because a friend of mine believes in you. A girl named Janice Reed.
Janice? You've seen her?
That's why I'm here leaning against that .45 in your hand. Tide, why don't you get smart? That girl's in love with you.
But what about Rick Martin?
Oh, forget him. Sooner or later, the cops will catch up with Martin. They'll put him away for keeps.
Sure. Meanwhile, what's to keep Martin and his boys from coming after me?
I'll do what I can about that. But to play it safe, why don't you get out of town, away from here for a while?
What's that? Holliday, if this is a trap, you'll never leave here alive.
Then we've got a deal. Because that was probably a stray cat. Now listen to me, Johnny. Do what I say, will you? Forget Rick Martin. Get out of town for your own sake and for Janice.
Yeah, sure. Forget the whole thing. Forget I was framed and went up for 5 years. That's a long time, Holliday. An awful long time.
I know it, Johnny. But it's done now.
Yeah, done. Me with a record. You can't wipe that away.
Suppose we fix it so that everybody finds out about the frame.
How?
Well, first give me that gun. Then get out of town and let the police take care of Rick Martin. Fatty Ralston can be made to talk.
How?
He talked to me because he was afraid of you. He'll talk, Johnny. And when he does, that record of yours will be wiped off. Come on, now, what do you say? Well?
Here, I'm a sap. A gold-plated 14-karat sap, but here.
That's a good boy. Now go someplace where you'll be out of the way. And you leave this to the police.
Sure. But so help me, Holliday. If I get another loop thrown around me, if anything slips, Johnny Tide will be back for you. When
I left Johnny, I was sure everything was going to be all right. I put his gun in my pocket and started up the street for Rick Martin's place. I wanted to be sure that Martin would let Johnny get out of town under his own power. I took a shortcut through an alley. Brother, how foolish can you get? I hadn't gone 10 feet when I heard footsteps behind me. I tried to duck, but I wasn't quick enough.
Mr. Dan Holliday in his usual position after sticking out his neck. Come on, see if he can get up.
Oh, Kling, they ought to do something about these buildings around here. They fall on people.
Yeah, somebody slugs her.
You know, I gathered that.
And that isn't all you gathered.
What are you talking about?
3 guesses. Just take only one. That's all you'll need.
I still don't know what you're talking about. But I know one thing.
And that is?
Don't worry about Johnny Tide anymore. I had a talk with him.
So you talked Johnny Tide into being a good boy. You let that fast-talking little... Holliday, while you were lying here asleep, Tide got to Rick Martin and killed him.
June 5th, 1949, Box 13 on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, more of Box 13 starring Alan Ladd from June 5th, 1949.
And now back to Design for Danger, another Box 13 adventure with Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
The moment Lieutenant Kling told me that Rick Martin was shot to death, I plunged my hand into my pocket for the .45 I'd taken from Johnny Tide. But it was gone.
Looking for this, maybe?
The gun?
Yeah, we found it next to Rick Martin's body. Holliday, you've been taken in by a fast-talking punk. Any way you look at it, your name spells sucker.
Yeah, you're right. Johnny Tide sang a pretty lullaby, and I went to sleep. But get this, Kling. Before the sun comes up, I'm going to plant Rick Martin's murder right in your lap. Well, sunrise was only 6 hours away, and that meant I had to move fast. I remembered Fatty's warning that he and Janice Reed would be next if Johnny Tide ever got to Rick. So I lost no time in getting to the girl's apartment.
What, Mr. Holliday? What are you doing here?
Rick Martin's just been murdered, Janice.
Yes, I know. Tyler Bennett called me a few minutes after it happened.
Look, Janice, that Johnny's off on a killing spree, and you and Fatty are next in line.
No, I don't believe that. Johnny isn't a killer.
Rick Martin wouldn't see it that way, Janice. Now listen to me. I want you to lock this place up tight and stay under cover.
But I can't. I've got to be back at the club for the late show.
Call Tyler Bennett when it's time. He'll take care of you.
But where are you going?
To find 300 pounds named Fatty Ralston. It cost me a $50 bill and a lot of legwork, but I finally located Fatty out on an old oil barge anchored off the end of a deserted pier. So I took off my shoes, stripped to the waist, and quietly swam out to the barge. Once on deck, I could hear the voices of 2 men coming from the cabin. One of them was Fatty. I couldn't see the other man. I edged closer, and then I banged against the steel drum, and the noise it made shattered the silence. The light in the cabin went out.
Who's that? Come on, who is it?
Just an old friend, Fatty.
Huh? You again?
Let's go in the cabin, Fatty. I'm a little wet.
Sure, why not? Come on.
Light the lamp.
Anything to oblige. See better now?
Not yet. Who was with you?
Nobody.
Where's Johnny Tide? I said, where's Johnny?
He ain't here.
Don't give me that.
Why don't you look around?
Put down that gun first.
You're mixed up, fella. I give the orders. I got the gun.
That's right. Give me a cigarette, will you?
I don't smoke.
No? Not even Egyptian cigarettes?
Huh?
This cabin's thick with smoke from Egyptian cigarettes.
Maybe you better go. Now.
Hand me that towel, Fatty. I'm a little chilly.
Yeah.
Thanks. Drop that gun, Fatty. Drop it.
Hey, off! You're breaking it.
Drop that gun. All right. Move back. Okay, now I give the orders. I've got the gun.
Listen, don't do nothing. Don't, please.
Oh, I'm not. I'm going to stand perfectly still and listen to you talk.
Okay, I'll talk.
Whoever fired those shots couldn't have missed Fatty. And whoever it was got off the barge and into the boat that was tied on the opposite side. I ran over. I slipped once on the oil-covered deck, and the motorboat made for the shore. I had to stand and watch Johnny Tide get away. Get away after killing Fatty. And that made 2 down and 1 to go. And the one was Janice Reed.
June 5th, 1949, Box 13 on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The conclusion follows these messages from your favorite radio station. Just going to take a minute here to tell you about the big savings going on now, the clearance sale at mypillow.com. And you know, I've talked about how in my office I have a pair of my slippers, and they're really comfortable, and they're on clearance right now. The mypillow.com slippers, $25 a pair, limit 10. And I would buy 3 or 4 more pairs. Unfortunately, they're out of my size. They also have sheets, pillowcases, clothing items, all on special right now. Go to mypillow.com, click on the clearance tab at the top of the page, use my promo code Wyatt, or call 1-800-928-4715. Limited sizes remaining in the MyPillow slippers, limited colors on other items. mypillow.com, clearance tab, promo code Wyatt, 1-800-928-4715. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, now the conclusion of Box 13, Designed for Danger, June 5th, 1949.
I swam back, slipped into my things, got to a phone, told the police about Fatty. Then I headed for Janice Reed's apartment. It was dark, deserted. I found an unlocked window and got inside. And I had the sickening feeling that I was just one step behind Johnny Tide and his gun. Then I knew it wasn't Janice. She'd use her key. I moved to the door quietly.
What the? Get your hands off me, Holiday.
Why, Mr. Bennett. I'm sorry. I thought you were Johnny Tide.
Obviously. I came to take Janice to the club. Where is she?
I don't know. I was just going through the place when I heard you at the door. Here, I'll switch on the light. Come on, let's look in the bedroom. Well, there's nobody in here. I guess I'm too late again. Wait a minute. This memo pad. Here near the phone.
What about it? What does it say?
It's written with an eyebrow pencil. Pier 42 at 1:30. Sure, that girl's just crazy enough to keep a rendezvous with Johnny Tide. What time is it now?
10 after 1. Why? What are you going to do?
Maybe 3's a crowd, Mr. Bennett, but I'm going to be there when Johnny Tide and Janice get together. I'm going to...
What is it, Holiday? What are you staring at?
Look. They're on the rug. Those smudges. That's oil.
Oil? I don't follow you. What does it mean?
The Tide's been here already. Those are his tracks.
What?
Yes, you see, he was out on the oil barge an hour ago, and the deck was slick with that stuff. I know. I slipped myself.
Well, then, couldn't those be your footprints?
No, I left my shoes on the pier. I swam out.
But why would Johnny make an appointment with Janice and still come up here?
I don't know. Only Johnny can answer that. Just like he can tell me where he gets those smelly Egyptian cigarettes he smokes. I took a cab to within the block of Pier 42. Then I got out, walked quietly to the rendezvous spot. Janice was already standing in the soft light of a street lamp waiting. So I ran back to the phone and called Lieutenant Kling. With the girl set up like a clay pigeon, I didn't want to take any chances. When I got back to Janice, it was 1:30 on the button. And a second later, a man stepped from the side door of a warehouse. It was Johnny Tide. I moved closer as Johnny went up to Janice.
Johnny, darling.
Hello, Janice.
Oh, Johnny, it's been such a long time.
Yeah, 5 years. An awful long time, Janice.
What's the matter, Johnny? Aren't you glad to see me?
Sure, awful glad, Janice. Awful glad.
But what's the matter? Johnny, why are you looking like that?
I'm just trying to figure out something.
Oh, never mind now, Johnny. Look, you've got to get away.
Wait a minute. Listen. Cops. You did it again, didn't you?
Johnny, no.
I might have known I was going to give you a chance to explain.
Johnny!
Now.
Hold it, Johnny.
Holiday, you.
She didn't call the police, I did.
I'll get both of you later.
I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be back.
Johnny! Johnny, don't run away anymore. Don't run away.
Holiday, Dan, you there?
Right here, Kling.
Where is he?
He ran into the warehouse.
Okay. Put a ring around that warehouse. Spotlight, tear gas.
No, let him alone. Let him alone.
Okay, boys, let's go.
I'm going with you, Kling.
Be careful. Come on.
It's no use, Johnny. The police are here. You're licked, kid. Come on, give up.
Not me, Holiday. Me and the law just don't seem to get along.
But, Johnny, it's your only chance. Will you give up? Answer me, Johnny.
You hurt, Dan?
Just in the shoulder, I'm all right.
There he is. Up there on that raft. Kennedy, your light, shine it up there.
There he goes, Lieutenant. Get him.
No, don't, Kling. Don't shoot.
Stay out of this, Holiday. What the devil? You crazy, Holiday?
Not quite. Kennedy, shine your light up behind you.
Yes.
Up there. Higher. There. There's your man, Kling.
What? Well, who is that, Holiday?
That lieutenant is the man who killed Rick Martin and Fatty Ralston and tried to frame Johnny Tide for the whole thing. The name is Tyler Bennett.
Well, Holiday, how are you this morning?
Oh, pretty good, Kling. The doc says I'll be out in a couple of days.
Good. Well, like you figured, the whole thing was a scheme of Bennett's to kill Rick Martin and take over as number one man in Watertown.
Yeah, and with Tide framed for the murder. Tyler Bennett would also have had a clear field with Janice.
And he was the one who knocked you out just before Rick Martin was shot, huh?
Uh-huh. He must have followed me from the blue chip to Johnny's hideout, where he heard me talk Johnny out of his gun. From there on out, he was in the driver's seat. But I still don't see why Bennett killed Fatty out on the barge.
Because Fatty was Bennett's sidekick in this frame. And when it looked as though you might get the truth out of him, Bennett was forced to shoot one of you. You were lucky. Fatty made a better target. But now I've got one for you, the jackpot question. When you were in the warehouse, how did you know that Johnny Tide was innocent?
Well, I found that out the hard way. You see, I was facing Johnny when I was shot. In the back.
Gee, Mr. Holliday, you certainly had a long night in Watertown. But there's one thing I don't understand.
And what's that, Susie?
Why did Tyler Bennett follow you down to the pier?
Oh, he had to because of the oily footprints in Janice's apartment. You see, once I got to Johnny Tide and found out that he didn't have oil on his shoes, I would have realized the footprints couldn't have come from anyone but Tyler himself.
Oh.
Besides, I would have also found out that Johnny didn't smoke Egyptian cigarettes.
But what about Johnny? Now, I mean.
Oh, he's on probation for stealing the gun. Everyone knows he was framed for the other deal.
Gee, you know, Mr. Holliday, I wonder if I would have thought of that Egyptian cigarette thing. Nope, I guess I wouldn't.
Why not?
Because I don't know a single Egyptian.
Oh, good night, Susie.
Next week, same time, through the courtesy of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd stars as Dan Holliday in Box 13. Box 13 is directed by Richard Sandville, with this week's original story by Gene Levitt and Bob Mitchell. Original music is composed and conducted by Rudy Schrager. The part of Susie is played by Sylvia Picker, and that of Lieutenant Kling by Edmund MacDonald. Production is supervised by Vern Karstensen. Box 13 is a Mayfair production from Hollywood. Watch for Alan Ladd in his latest Paramount picture.
Alan Ladd's Mayfair Productions owned this show, so Alan Ladd was in control of his own destiny with Box 13, June 5th, 1949, on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. So when Lum-and-Abner gets something going good, you know that there's going to be trouble along the way. This episode of Lum-and-Abner, sent to us by Ted at RadioMemories.com, was originally broadcast on June 5th, 1935, and it seems the motion picture show is stirring up a lot of interest with the Squire.
Well, it looks like Lum-and-Abner have finally hit upon a good idea for a new business venture. The Pine Ridge Planetarium, their new picture show, is progressing nicely and should soon be open to the public. As we look in on the old fellows today, We find them down at the Jot 'em Down store discussing final arrangements for their formal opening. Listen.
Well, we better be getting some ordered from someplace. First thing you know, we'll have the picture show all ready to open up and no moving pictures.
Well, Abner, I told you I don't know where to order 'em from. I've looked through all the mail order catalogs over there at the house, and none of them ain't got 'em for sale. Or I can't find none.
Well, it'd be a shame now that the building's about finished if we couldn't find out where they sell 'em.
You know, I believe the best thing for us to do, Abner, is to call up that feller in there at the county seat and ask him where he buys his net.
Yeah, I could do that, I reckon. I hadn't thought about that.
Here, let me step to the phone here. I'll just call him up right now.
Yeah, I asked him how Cedric's getting along too long.
Huh?
I asked him how Cedric's getting along too.
Oh, yeah, he ought to have learned all about running them machines by now.
And I don't know. Cedric's pretty slow about picking stuff up, oh. He might not have no talents for the picture show business.
Wait a minute. Hello? Central? Will you ring the Lyric Theaters, please, Mom? All right.
Yeah, tell him what we named our show, too, while you're at it, Mom.
Yeah, I believe we've got them skinned on the name.
Oh, yeah.
Hello? It is? Well, good. Just who I was calling. Let me speak to the manager, please, Mom.
Yeah.
Mom? Oh, this is Lum Edwards, manager of the Pine Ridge Planetarium. Planetarium? Why, it's a picture show. Yes, Mom. All right. Swan, she's got to know everything. Acts like she's scared to death something's going to happen that she ain't in on. Curiosity, I reckon. Every time I call up, she wants to know who I am and all about me.
Yeah, well, women is awful curious critters. They're the best the same way.
Hello? Why, tolerably well. How's yourself? Uh-huh. How's Cedric getting along in there? He is? Well, that's fine. I'm proud to hear it. Says Cedric's catching right on to running that machine, Abner.
Well?
Why, what I called you up about, where do you buy your moving picture shows at? Well, I mean the films. The pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You're looking for him in there today, huh? Well, I wish you'd send him on out here. Tell him we've got to buy some moving pictures from somebody. And... Yeah. All right. Much obliged to you. All right. Goodbye. He said there's a regular drummer that sells them things.
Yeah.
Says he's supposed to be in there today, and if he shows up, he's going to send him on out here to see us.
Well, fine. Regular drummer sells them, huh?
That's what he says. I figured there must be some way to get 'em without writing to the actors firm.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a nuisance.
Well, let's see. We better be deciding what pictures we want before that feller gets here, then.
Well, maybe we better wait and see what he's got first, huh?
Well, he'll have all kinds of 'em, more than likely. We just have to tell him what we want and let him get 'em first. See, different actors is in different pictures.
Yeah, well, let's be sure and get one with Charlie Chaplin's in it, Lum. He's my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a case, that feller. He's always struck me funny for some reason. Gets himself in the worst mix-ups, looks like. You don't use no judgment's the trouble with him.
No.
I hate to laugh at a feller's troubles that way, but I'll swan he'll do some things that looks like anybody with just half sense would know better.
Yeah, I wanted to laugh, too. Special that Walker here.
Yeah.
But I reckon a body oughtn't to make fun of how anybody looks so.
No, a feller can't help how he looks.
No.
Well, sir, I seen out doing this thing in Kansas City while I was in there. I ever seen in my life. They had a picture show in there with a mouse acting in it.
A mouse?
Yes, sir. Mickey Mouse, they call him. And it's downright astonishing what they've learned that little rascal to do. Just acts mighty nigh like a human.
Well, I do know.
Talks and everything else.
Talks? A mouse?
Yes, sir. They've learned him to talk just as good as me or you either one.
Well, I'd love to see him.
Oh, it's the beatin'est thing you ever seen. Walks around on his hind legs all the time. Wears clothes and everything. Got a little suit for him.
Well,
shoes.
I know that'd be funny having a mouse running around the house that could talk, wouldn't it?
Well, tell you the truth, Abner, I don't much think it's a sure enough mouse. They claim it is, but I think I catched on to it.
Yeah.
I believe it's a man dressed up like one.
A man dressed up like a mouse, huh?
Yeah, it stands to reason they couldn't learn no mouse to do the things he done. But I wished you could have shown him.
Well, why don't we get a picture with him in it, then?
Well, if this feller that's coming out here's got one, we will. I think we better get it for a little later on, though. I don't think it'd be best to have it right at first.
Well, why not? I'm anxious to see it, Lum.
Well, it just wouldn't look right to have our grand opening and use a picture with a mouse doing the acting. That wouldn't look right.
No.
We want to get just as big a picture as we can for that first night.
Well, I thought they's all about the same size, them pictures.
Well, they are all the same size, but some of them's what they call big pictures. Extras.
Well, now, we don't want to get one too big for that screen that we got down there, Lum.
Well, that won't make no difference, Abner. They'll all fit that screen. When I say big, that ain't got nothing to do with the size of it.
You mean when you call something big, that ain't got nothing to do with the size of it?
Not in the moving picture business, it ain't. When you say it's a big picture, you mean it's a extra gooder.
Well, they've got more crazy names for things here lately. Looks like I'm just going to have to learn to talk all over again.
Oh, well, you'll get used to them expressions. You just listen to me close, and you'll catch on to it all right. I see right now, I must have been just natural cut out for the show business myself.
Yes, sir, I believe this is one thing that we're going to make a success out of, Lum.
Oh, yeah. Things have sure been running smooth, ain't
Yeah, they sure have. Awful smooth.
Here it ain't been over a week hardly since we first decided to go into it. Here we might not ready to open up already.
Well, for the land's sakes, look who's coming in out there.
Oh, well, for goodness sakes. First time I saw him since I got back from Kansas City.
No, he ain't been coming around much here late, thank goodness.
You get up and wait on him, Abner. Him and me can't get along with him.
Well, howdy, Squire.
Yeah, come in, Squire, come in.
Good evening, gentlemen, good evening.
And what can we do for you, Squire?
Why, not a thing, Abner, not a thing. Keep your seat. Just thought I'd drop over and loaf with you men for a while.
Well, sit down, Squire, sit down. Drag up that box.
Yes, thank you, Lum. They tell me that you fellers are going to open up a picture show here in Pine Ridge.
Yeah, we'll have her going in a few days now, I hope.
Yes, well, I was just over there where they're remodeling the building for you. It's going to look all right, too, yes.
You think it's all right?
Oh, yes, I believe it is, Lum.
Well, thank you, Squire. I think it's going to look right nice myself.
Well, sir, you know, you men just beat me out of an idea there.
Beat you out of an idea?
Yes, I had the same thing in mind myself.
Well.
You know, that's my old business, theater. I was in the show business long before I came to this part of the country. I opened up the first picture show in Centralia, Missouri, years ago. Put it in the old opera house there.
Well, I do know. Well, that's one business I never knowed you'd been in, Squire.
Oh, yes, I know the picture show business from A to Z.
You know it where, Squire?
Why, what was it, Abner?
Nothing, Squire. Go ahead. What was it you started to say?
Why, I was just wondering, how would you men like to have a third partner in this picture show that you're putting in? You ought to have somebody in the business that knows something about it.
Well, I don't much think we'd want to take in no third partners.
No, I know that blame well we would, and I don't think nothing about it.
You see, Squire, we get to dividing them profits 3 ways, and they wouldn't be nigh as much for none of us. Yeah.
Well, but now, Lum, with my knowledge of the show business, I could make more than enough extra profits to pay my share.
How do you figure that, Squire? Ain't much a feller can do, so I'd just take up the tickets and run the films.
Yes, well, you learn that there's a lot more to it than that, Lum. It takes showmanship. You've got to figure out different ways to get people to come out. Like on this opening night you're going to have. That ought to be one of the biggest events in the history of Pine Ridge. The opening of our first picture show.
Oh, yeah.
Why, you ought to have this whole countryside plastered with advertisements. If I had charge of that thing, I'd have the SRO sign out every night of the week.
Well, that ain't the name of it, though. It's Pine Ridge Planetarium.
Well, what I mean by the SRO sign, Lum, is standing room only. Oh. I'd have every seat in that place sold every night.
Standing room only?
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
We ought to have one of them signs. That's one thing I overlooked. I don't know, Granny Squire, but what you would make us a good third partner. You brung up some points there that shows you know what you're talking about, all
Well,
right.
now, just a minute there, Lum, before you go any farther. I've got something to say about that. I'm a partner in this thing myself.
Yeah, of course, it'll have to be satisfaction with Abner.
Well, it ain't satisfaction with me, I'll tell you that right now. In the first place, I don't want no third partner. And if I did, I wouldn't want Squire.
Why, Abner, you hurt Squire's feelings.
I don't see any reason why you should feel that way, Abner.
Well, maybe you can't, but I can. I've had all the dealings with you that I want to have, and I don't want to have a thing to do with anything that you're mixed up in.
Abner.
Well, now, I'm just trying to do you men a favor, Abner.
Well, you ain't going to get no third-inch horse in our picture show, so you may as well just get that idea out of your head right now.
Well, all right if that's the way you feel about it, but I gave you a chance. I'll tell you right now, if you men don't let me in with you, I'm going to open up a picture show right here in Pine Ridge and run competition to you. I'll run you out of business. I'll close that show of yours up or know the reason why.
And just as things were running so smoothly, Squire Skimp had to put in an appearance. This is Carlton Brickert, speaking for Lum-and-Abner and Horlicks, who now bid you all good night and good health.
Now, you know Squire's going to get in here and try to mix everything up and try to hurt Lum-and-Abner. You watch. This is going to be ugly by the time it's done with. From originally broadcast June 5th, 1935. Lum-and-Abner here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks again to our friend Ted, RadioMemories.com. Ted supplies shows on cassette, CD, or flash drive for your computer so that everybody can listen to great old classic radio shows. Classic Radio Theater shows at RadioMemories.com. Our webpage, classicradio.stream. Stream our shows. Learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me. Find our social media links. You can also find lists of places where you can download our shows via podcast, and you can buy me a coffee. That Buy Me a Coffee money allows us to acquire additional classic radio collections to bring to you and also maintain our distribution channels. That's at classicradio.stream. Classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends the greatest radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.